33. Take thou also unto thee 3 principal spices of liquid myrrh, 30:22 through 33. Take thou also unto thee 3 principal spices of liquid myrrh, 500 shekels, and of sweet cinnamon half as much, even 250 shekels, and of sweet calamus 250 shekels, and of cassia 500 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, and of olive oil a hin. And thou shalt make it an oil of holy ointment, compound after the art of apothecary. It shall be a holy anointing oil. In some biblical translations, liquid myrrh is referred to as pure myrrh. Pure myrrh is the gum which comes out of the balsam plant. It was known as the painkiller tree by the ancient nomads. Cinnamon is also an ancient herbal medicine. Cinnamon is mentioned in several ancient pharmacopoeias and is certainly used by traditional healers. Cassia is also a type of cinnamon commonly known as Chinese cinnamon. It also has medicinal properties. Based on the Hebrew used within the holy oil, it is most likely that the rolled bark of the plant was used. Sweet calamus in some Bibles is also translated as fragrant cane. Calamus was banned by the FDA in 1968 for use in food and medicines. Calamus contains upwards of 75% acerone. Acerone is a poison which has been shown to cause cancer, affect heart, kidney, and liver functions. Why would God specify a poison to be used in the holy anointing oil? Could it be that some churches today are anointing the heads of babies with poison? Did God mandate that the holy anointing oil contain a poison? The original Hebrew for calamus is cannabis. Some translations have this as fragrant cane or aromatic cane. Some researchers have argued that this is actually sweet cane or sugar cane, although the term sweet does not occur in the original manuscripts. In the Hebrew, terms such as Elohim is rendered plural. So in the Hebrew, cannabosim is also plural. The singular then is rendered cannabis. Cannabis sounds remarkably close to the modern-day word cannabis. Could it be that cannabis was the plant given by God to be used in the holy anointing oil? According to the Webster's New World Hebrew Dictionary, the current Hebrew word for hemp is cannabis. Cannabis has certainly been cultivated since the beginning of recorded history.
The use of cannabis by humans precedes the writing of history. In fact, most of history was written on paper that was made out of cannabis. So there's maybe some relation to that. But basically what we do know on that regard is that we have evidence that goes back 10,000 years to 8,000 BC that simultaneously, somewhat simultaneously, in 2 parts of the world, people began cultivating cannabis and using it for fiber purposes.
The use of cannabis for rope, sails, and rigging into ancient times are well documented. Imagine the amount of cannabis rope it would have taken to construct the Temple of Solomon. What other way was there to construct ropes at that time, which could lift the weights not only of the Temple of Solomon, but in fact the pyramids themselves?
In Egypt, they were using flax to make the linens that were used on the mummies, but that they were using hemp for making ropes.
Cannabis was thought to be an Indo-European word, specifically of Scythian origin. The Scythians were largely responsible for the spread of cannabis into Europe.
A lot of people would argue, well, how does an Indo-European root end up in the Hebrew language? Because, you know, cannabis is definitely from an Indo-European root. An Indo-European language is basically the root language of most of our modern languages. Hebrew is independent of this. That is because it was an item of trade. And as items of trade, it retains its same name from region to region, unlike stuff that can be found in any locality like water or a cow or wheat or whatever, which has its own name in each place. Items of trade generally come with a name that they retain from their place of existence. And we have other examples of this in the Bible as well. In fact, in Exodus 30:23, where we have the reference to cannabosum, we have a reference to cinnamon, which was the Hebrew counterpart of cinnamon, which was also a very popular item of trade.
The scythe was an invention of the Scythians used for the harvest of cannabis. This has come to us in the legends of the Grim Reaper.
One of the main factors that ties us all together is this group known as the Scythians. Some people say Scythians. I prefer Scythians because there's a tool that's called a scythe, which we have today that comes from them. And what it is whereas a sickle has a small blade and a handle on it and it's used for cutting wheat, the scythe is a long handle, a long blade. If you ever see the Grim Reaper, he's got a scythe that he's carrying. And the Grim Reaper symbolizes that at the end of our lives, that just as people go out and harvest the fields of hemp, the Grim Reaper comes and harvests people at the end of their lives. The Scythians invented that tool for harvesting cannabis.
Herodotus, an early Greek ethnographer in the 5th century BC, wrote of the Scythians and their use of cannabis.
Now, the Scythians get their main mention and historical reference out of Herodotus.
Herodotus, of course, was an early ethnographer. He said that it was his duty to record what he was told. He didn't necessarily believe everything